Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Bone Podcast, where we discuss all things crypto markets. That includes the majors like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, meme coins, and of course, NFTs. Today, we're going to discuss the roller coaster price action over the weekend. We saw some ups, we saw some downs, a lot of liquidations. We're going to talk about a renaming proposal for Bitcoin and how this could be interesting for the retail trader. And MicroStrategy is in a bit of hot water this morning. I'm joined today by Sig. You're going to see a lot of signal and kicks this week as the team is over gallanting, whatever the word is, gallivanting over in London. Sig, how you feeling this morning? You ready to kick off a pretty fun week here?
Yeah, the cats are away, so the mice will play. I don't know. I feel like do we get the short straw because we got left behind, or do they have the short straw because they have to go to London?
I'm counting my blessings. I'm happy to be home for this one. Maybe like a Vegas or like a Bali trip. I'll be happy to tag along. But this one, I'm fine sitting out. I'll say, hey, you guys can go over there, like have your fun. I'll pretend that I'm missing out. Like, oh, you guys always get to travel, like right up to like the nice trip, and then go to that one. So that's
yeah. But you also know what's going to happen. You're going to have Easy coming back, just being an absolute grumpalump along the way because he's basically going to be so jet lagged, and he's just going to be clicking buttons and losing money. So we're going to probably have a grumpy Easy for a few days. Someone, I don't know who in a team, probably like Clemente, is going to be complaining how small the lifts are and how narrow the roads are. Nick's going to get sick because he always gets sick when he travels, and Pio is obviously going to go on some detour down to Barrow. I think he pronounces it Barrow Market, which is basically foodie heaven, and he's going to be out there and coming back with stories about food and nothing about actually what they did out there. I love it. Nick's wearing 50,000 grand on his hand. If he's in London, I'm just going to say, pow, pow, little kid on a Santander bike's going to come along and just steal all his gold. But anyway, I'm sure the folks are going to have an amazing time out there. London is good fun. Lots of good food, lots of good stuff to see. So I'm sure they'll come back with tales of the city.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they cook up out there. They're out there. They're going to be there for the AVAX Summit. The theme of the AVAX Summit this year is real adoption. So we've seen a good amount of like corporate adoption by AVAX, the DMVs in California, using them for like registration, which is pretty cool, and some other stuff. FIFA looking to get their hand into AVAX as well. So pretty excited about what AVAX is building. They're out there. They're going to be covering all the news. So if you're somebody who's looking to dive into AVAX, make sure you're following Easy, Clemente, Nick, Pio. They're going to be bringing you all of the latest alpha direct from the floor there. Yeah, Sig, we've got a lot to talk about. Why don't we just kick it right off with a weather report, and then we'll just kind of dive into some of these stories.
Let's get into it. It's been a fun weekend, but let's get into it. On Monday, May 19th, looking at that crypto roundup, their majors, they were all over the place over the weekend, but they are down on the day. They left us with Bitcoin just over 102K, Ethereum at 2,400, and Solana at $160. Over the weekend, top three stories. Well, firstly, Bitcoin pumped as high as 106K. It's just within reach of that all-time high. On Sunday, it recorded its highest weekly close of all time. The price retraced since, and over 660 million has been liquidated from crypto leverage traders over the last 24 hours. Next up, for the first time ever, Moody's, just like their name sounds, has downgraded the US credit rating. They join the S&P and Fitch in downgrading the US from a AAA down to a AA+. And then finally, the Bitcoin community began to debate on the BIP 177 proposal to rename Satoshis. The proposal looks to rename the smallest denomination to Bitcoin, with 100 million Bitcoin summing up to one whole BTC. They're erasing his name, Ray, I'm telling you. Anyway, that is all for the weather report. It is back to you in the studio.
Excellent weather report, as always, Signal. This Bitcoin thing is kind of interesting to me because a lot of time you hear people saying like, oh, I'm not buying Bitcoin. It's too expensive. I'm too late. Well, now you'll be buying Bitcoin at 100 millionth the price, technically. And owning that 100 million of those Bitcoins would give you one full BTC. This is a BIP proposal, Bitcoin Improvement Proposal, I believe is the acronym for BIP. Basically, they're saying like this is going to be easier. they're going to use the Bitcoin symbol to like denote what would now be called Bitcoins, formerly known as Satoshi. So 10,000 with the Bitcoin symbol, like we're looking at here on screen, would be the equivalent of 10,000 Satoshis, or 0.0001 BTC. So, I mean, this could be interesting. Like, I could see a world where eventually you're pricing in Bitcoin as opposed to BTC. If this goes through, I think you have large number theory, small number theory in play here for retail. I think that if I was somebody who would be looking at implementing this proposal, I think it just makes a ton of sense, and makes a ton of sense to do it now. Cons, I could see would people be like, I could see the headlines already being like, Bitcoin is now debased itself by 100 million, and they can do this whenever they want. They're just doing this instead of like they're printing more Bitcoin essentially, which I can see as like a counter case. But
you know what's interesting about this, Ray, though, like looking at it, I haven't like delved into this BIP 177, but I think what's interesting is that I kind of look through the lens of this is as a marketing play. So like if you're a normie and you'd be like, and you know, someone's talking about the smallest denomination and you're talking about Satoshis, like instinctively you'd be like, what the hell is a Satoshi? And then you have to explain Satoshi and all that stuff. And the law just goes back to the reason why so many people who are not into Bitcoin don't like Bitcoin, because they just think it's like this anonymous, weird scam money machine. But actually, I think having denomination, the smallest denomination just called Bitcoin, it just kind of changes the marketing a bit. And then it's like, I think if you're explaining to someone at a dinner party, they'd just be more open to it. I know it's, you know, I know it sounds weird, but I just think, I just think as it crosses this 100K barrier, changing the marketing from this anonymous founder to something more cuddly and warmer by just basically using the same name is a good thing. Yeah, so I'm kind of looking at this from a marketing lens rather than they're going to print more money lens. But I think it's a good thing. I think it could be a really good thing for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's all marketing. I mean, they're not printing money like in either way. I'm just saying like a normie take potentially could be like, hey, you're printing Bitcoin, and like I think they pretty much agree here. They're saying like this is like, it's like educational, because like people would like look at Bitcoin, they're like, okay, well, like it's decimal based. It really isn't decimal based when you look at it. It's basically Satoshis are individual units, and they make up the larger, what we now call a Bitcoin, with 100 million of those. So basically this kind of like roots you in like, okay, these are the smallest units. You can't like divide from here. Like they're saying the decimal point is merely a human imposed abstraction. Aligns user perception with the protocol's true nature, reduces cognitive overhead, ensures users understand Bitcoin as counting discrete units, which also ultimately improves educational clarity and user experience. Yeah, I think I agree with all this. Bishop M, name doesn't matter. I think it does matter. I think it matters.
It does. Bishop, come on. Have you ever heard of like, you know, a Prius? Who wants to drive a Prius? You know, or who wants to drive an Audi or a Ferrari? The name, I'm sorry, I have Bishop. I love you. I do. You've got some great comments, long-time listener. But I think the name really does matter, especially when it comes to the world of cryptocurrency, where for most normies, everything, like they don't even want to do the research. They don't even want to like try and understand Bitcoin. They just haven't had time to delve into it. I think we need to make everything feel as cuddly and friendly and as welcoming in order to get people in order to incentivize people to allocate their time to doing the research to find more about it. Otherwise, everyone's going to just, you know, end up driving Priuses. No offense to people who drive Prius.
T-word in the comments. I think it could confuse people more versus calling it one sat. Now, how do you differentiate versus B versus BTC? Unless I missed that. I mean, essentially, it's like afterwards, it's either BTC or Bitcoin, Bitcoins plural, or you can put this B symbol in front of it. There's like the B with lines, like the symbol of Bitcoin would go in front of the new small unit Bitcoin, and it looks like they're calling. So like before you'd be like, oh, I have like, I think the plural of Bitcoin, like I own 4 Bitcoin. You pluralize it without adding an S. It looks like with this new system, like, okay, I own 10,000 Bitcoins, or I own like 4.5 BTC or something like that. A good comment from the crowd as well. Null says, just don't put the runes people in charge of the naming.
That's a good one. Look, I think, like overall, I think it's moving in the right direction, because naturally Bitcoin at this price, as it keeps going up, is going to keep getting more and more attention. And I think if the terminology around the entire ecosystem can be just made to be more interesting and more curious for people out there and easier to understand, I think this is a good thing. So we'll see if this. Do we know, like, if this proposal will go ahead this year? Is this happening right now, or do we have to wait a long time for this to go through?
I believe so. This was placed 2 weeks ago, so it's like getting comments right now. I think some people have commented. I think the reason it got so much attention, I believe Jack Dorsey commented on it over the last like however many days. And that's what like got the attention. I'll have to bring it up.
Well, if Dorsey's in on it, it's going to happen soon anyway. But I like this. No, I like this story, Ray. But let's move on. What else has been cooking in the markets over the weekend?
Yeah, we had a lot. We had a lot of moving. So we had Bitcoin run to new weekly highs. We've been chasing that weekly close for a couple weeks now. We finally saw Bitcoin break the weekly high. Let's pull up the chart here over on TradingView. Just take a look at what we're looking at and the volatility that we saw. So bringing up the 1 week on Bitcoin here, we're looking at a new weekly close here of 106,520. Previous high weekly close was 104, 427. So we broke above that. On the weekly close, we're already down. We went as high as 107, 115. Now we're down to 102, down about 3 or 4%. I think we're following basically pre-market trading on the stocks. We're looking at 1.5% ish down on NASDAQ, 1% on S&P, 0.5% down on Dow, and maybe a combination of things, maybe some fear with the Moody's downgrade. We also saw Bostic, the CEO of the Atlanta Federal Reserve. He was basically saying that inflation's not like moving as fast to the target as we anticipated, and they're kind of leaning towards only one more rate cut this year from Bostic. And he's pretty influential on the rate decisions. He's been pretty sharp this year, so listening to him has kind of like done a little bit of future telling. So maybe markets cooling a bit on that news after the crazy pump on Bitcoin. What's your thoughts on the market? How did you feel with that run up? Did you think it was going to be sustained? Like, how are you feeling in the short term on these?
Yeah,
majors?
To be honest, I wasn't expecting us to stay at this level as basically to hold above 100. My gut has always been that we're going to range over summer, but end up being like in the high 90s, kind of like that, like 95 to 98 range. I thought we would be there. So to be above those expectations makes me super bullish. What's interesting though is, like, I don't know about you, Ray, but I haven't had many normie friends texting me. Maybe it's just me and they don't want to text me, but normally, and I remember last time when it went to all-time highs, I had people like texting me and being like, hey, so is it too late to buy Bitcoin? And the usual text that we get. And I haven't had it this time round. And I don't know why that is. Maybe people just becoming sort of like a little bit desensitized to it a little bit, that we've hit that all-time, maybe because it's not making the front pages in the same way that it used to when it used to go to these all-time highs. So from like a retail perspective, I've been quite surprised at the lack of interest that I've seen on my side. I don't know, but I am a survey of one. What's been going on your side? Have you had normie friends come and ask you about Bitcoin or anything, meme coins, Ethereum, anything like that?
Nope. No one's talking about it.
Okay, so a survey of 2 says no.
Yeah, so survey of 2 says no. And hey, if you're in the comments, leave us a comment on Twitter, leave us a comment on the YouTube. Are your normie friends asking you about Bitcoin, or did they ask you about crypto during this pump over the weekend or over the last maybe week or two, as we've kind of been grinding back up over 100K?
I think it's going to take a bit longer. I think for at least the people I know that normally text me, I think it's probably going to have to start breaking maybe maybe 120 and moving in the direction that Nick was talking about last week, where he was saying like he believes we go to 140. But I think I would start getting texts around 120 or so. It's extremely bullish that we're holding here. I think it means that essentially as we crab walk this like 95, sorry, as we crab walk over 100K, I think that means that meme coins, alts are still going to be a very interesting play. And it's just about finding those opportunities. I don't think it will be a boring summer because I believe this time last year, I want to say, were we in like the 60s range, 60s, 70s range, I want to say. And it wasn't the most interesting summer for trading, but I think if Bitcoin can stay over 100, it means that we have a good summer ahead of us. I think psychologically, people seeing it over 100 and not going back down will mean that it's a risk on environment. And as we've looked with at the stats saying that there's less likely to be a recession, I think a lot of people are looking at, because of what happened before with tariffs, could there be a recession? The odds were saying yes, potentially there could be. Now they've retraced away from that. You're having more of a risk on environment. And I think we see more sideline capital come back into the market. And that will be spread across from obviously on the institutional side, going into Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then from the retail side, meme coins will still stay interesting plays and sort of more alts and more sort of diversified plays. So I like where we are right now, Ray. I think it's a good time to be deployed. Hopefully you're already deployed, but I think going into summer, it means laptops out, toes out, bikinis on or swim trunks on and laptops out with your drink. Make sure you got good internet connection.
Yeah, I'm looking at last year's eggplant season. We were basically ranging in this range, just range bound from March all the way through November, ranging between 54K and like 70K, like 72 being the upper bound there. And it was just like chop the entire summer. If we see this kind of chop this year and then another leg up, I mean, I'm not going to complain. We're already like outpacing it on like a yearly basis. Like we saw the bottom come in March, April, and we're already running up in May. Last year, I mean, we were flat since February. And I think we kind of like all began to feel that last summer. Like towards the end of that summer, towards election season, we were just like, there's a lot of fatigue on the timeline where basically nothing was coming. We're in a holding pattern. There's uncertainty for who is going to be elected, what the future of crypto could look like, depending on like the different candidates and their policies. And then we finally did have that breakout after just forever of sideways action. So hopefully we can hold this level. Hopefully we get a little bit of excitement this summer as opposed to just
look at that though, with Harry hindsight in your head, mate. That was the moment to just be like DCAing every single week, just getting your buys in nice and slow. It's funny, like when you're in it, it feels like you're just like trudging through mud, sticky mud, just like, so boring. Oh, meme coins aren't pumping, nothing's staying. And then you look back with Harry hindsight 1 year later and you're just like, that was the almighty breakout. That was the place to be deploying, because there was no volatility, pretty much no volatility, very nice and stable. So it was just about making your plays. And I feel like if we get this kind of consolidation even here at this I keep saying 95 because that's where I think we could potentially go back to, but just kind of consolidate and crab walk. And you've got this 95 to say 106, 110, and like we're doing that for a while. I still think 1 year from now you'll be looking back with Harry hindsight going, damn, that was the second time I should have been deploying and DCAing. So feels hard when you're going through it, but when you look back, you're just like, God, the chart was so obvious. I could have drawn it.
Yeah, I mean, I could see something similar with this. If you go look at like 88 to 110, just ranging between all-time highs before breaking out. Eventually,
88. What are we doing down at 88? I said 95, right? Why are you going to 88 all of a sudden?
I'm looking at previous resistance on these low tests.
Yeah, but that down there,
95 to 110 is a very tight range to be ranging into. I feel like,
yes, because I'm crab walking. You're talking about a really volatile roller coaster. That stuff down there that 88, that's tariff stuff. We don't want that. We don't want we don't want more, or maybe you do, but we don't want that kind of volatility. I like the 95 to 105 if we can get that through summer, and then we see what happens in September onwards.
That's tight. I mean, last year we saw 73 to 55. So like that's the range I'm trying to compare it to. So like
Okay.
that's almost like almost 50% off the high in terms of range. So like I think even 88 to 110 is tight. Maybe it's on the upper. Like, I mean, maybe I'm wrong on the lower, and like we break all-time highs and then like walk a little bit. So like you would use 95 as like the 93 maybe as like the support, maybe like 115 as the upper, and you walk somewhere there after like kind of breaking out and consolidating. See that?
Okay, if that's your overlays there, what does that look like on ETH? What does that mean for ETH then?
I can try to extrapolate on ETH. ETH is like a completely different chart because we didn't see that same type of price action in 2024. Like we were much more like, look at this. Like we were much more like we were looking at, what is this? Yeah, 47% drawdown here, 4K to 2,400 in the summer before like grinding back up. Like ETH was like basically one retest of local high and then down only like pretty sharply over the summer.
Oh,
also part of the reason. So like it's very hard to figure out what's going to happen with ETH here. Like ETH
yeah,
is kind of an outlier.
but you know what, that makes ETH very interesting. As much as people really don't like it on the timeline, it has proved itself to be an asset that will come back in some way. Now, unfortunately, if you're buying ETH at 4K, maybe it might be a while before you see your returns. But I still think it's a massive underdog this season. People are underestimating the inflows that could go into the Ethereum trust as Bitcoin rallies. I think it's proven itself. It's been all over the place. It's had a horrible drawdown, but I don't see a world where Bitcoin goes to 120, 130, 140, and Ethereum just hanging out at 2,800. I don't see that happening. No matter how much people want to hate on the asset, it has proven itself to be the second best contender in the space, and so far, no other cryptocurrency has basically a US based trust where retail and institutional flows are going into. And until that happens, it's a number one and number two spot.
Yep, 100% agree. And we've been seeing some inflows on the Ethereum side. Net inflows this week, over the past week, we did pretty well. These used to be like red only. So now we're like at least seeing some flows and some volume into Ethereum ETFs, which is nice. Staying on the charts, we did have a huge winner over the weekend, down a little bit in pre-market trading, but DeFi Development Corp. This was Janover. If you've been familiar, we've been covering Janover since they basically turned into a Solana treasury company, acquiring Solana stakers, investing in Solana. They had a huge run up on Friday. They ran from 93 all the way up to 157. They're cooled off in the pre-market down to 135, but this is a huge runner. Market cap 324 mil on this. We've been talking about this basically since day one at around like $30. I know Nick and Easy bought a pretty decent sized bag up at around 75 to 80 as well. So they are happy campers with this one, almost a 2x and not even a month on DeFi DevCorp. So this one's been absolutely crushing it. And I think we're going to see some interesting price action on a number of these, like basically meme equity. I'm just going to call them meme equity, like meme crypto stocks. Essentially, they're just doing acquisition on crypto assets. Cantor's interesting to me here too. Seeing that run
is interesting because it's actually a real business.
Yeah, I mean,
like historically.
Yep, exactly. Jack Mallers has history with Strike. He understands Bitcoin. It's Bitcoin versus Solana, so maybe you lose a little bit of the upside of Solana, but I feel like you also lose a lot of the risk as well. So this one's interesting, and I've been debating this. If we see a drawdown in equities this week, this is going to follow, and I could maybe see myself DCAing into some Cantor here, maybe around like 400, 350, somewhere around that area in terms of market cap, because Janover is getting close. Janover/DeFi DevCorp, they're getting close to flipping Cantor, which I don't think is correct at all in my opinion.
I'm having real trouble trying to figure out how much I want of my equity portfolio to have exposure to the cryptocurrency world, either through, like, for example, what you're talking about, the DeFi development, MicroStrategy, Cantor. I think it was 21st we were talking about. I'm having trouble like wrapping my head around that because they are leveraged. They're essentially leveraged bets on cryptocurrency. So I'm just like, well, if cryptocurrency goes down, if Bitcoin goes down, then a lot of those other companies could potentially go down even harder. But then you also have the upside. So it's I haven't quite figured out what I want to, or how I want to allocate, and in what size I want to allocate these plays. I definitely want to have some exposure. I think I was really lucky to do MicroStrategy when I did, and to allocate aggressively. But my timing was correct, and I feel like now it's sort of like everyone's trying to do the same playbook. So when you are investing in these equity companies, I'm also like looking at the underlying, like, what does the company actually do? Like, it's more complicated than it looks, I feel like. But then maybe I'm just being, the classic curve, and I should just be like, no, just buy. Oh, you believe, like you believe in the sector, just buy. It's just, I feel like it's going to absolutely demolish my returns when it turns bad.
Yeah, I can definitely see that it is kind of like a levered bet on crypto. So like if crypto is going bad, these equities could be going worse. Normally you might be looking for like, okay, maybe I'll get some stability out of equities if there's some sort of event that hits crypto that would leave equities alone. So like you definitely are, I think, dialing up the risk a little bit if you're in crypto getting into some of these. But I think it's an interesting like play as opposed to say like, hey, what do I want to put 10K into? Do I want to put 10K into Fartcoin, or do I want to put 10K into like DeFi DevCorp or Cantor equity? I would look at them more like that. So like I consider those like similar bets in terms of
Wait,
like
you're comparing Fartcoin to Cantor Fitzgerald?
yeah, I think that's like my risk return, like risk adjusted return bucket.
You risk adjusted, dude. You have the most
The thing
wildest
is,
risk
so
return
Cantor,
adjusted
it's just like
bucket.
they're going to rebrand to 21, and it's just going to be the Bitcoin acquisition strategy. That's all they're going to be doing. Like that's 100% the business. It's not anything else from Cantor is gonna port over. It's going to be 100% Bitcoin acquisition strategy. So it's like a levered bet on crypto. And I look at Fartcoin as like maybe the safest levered bet on crypto in terms of meme coins. That's just my thought process.
That is wild. Your bucket is made of material that my bucket isn't made of. But I would never put Fartcoin and 21st into the same bucket, because one of those buckets has essentially it's an equity that has exposure to institutional flows and can be levered and traded and shorted in a way that Fartcoin wouldn't be, just because it has, first of all, less interest, doesn't have the institutional flows going to it in the same way that, say, 21 would. So like in my head, they're two completely risk adjusted returns, like completely separate. I would, in my head, I'm putting, there's a hole in Ray's bucket, dude. It's not a hole, it's been punched and it's just dripping. In my head, like 21 is sitting alongside my index funds, because I'm looking at my whole entire holistic equity portfolio over there. And then on the other side, I've got my Bitcoin with my memes and, all my alts, etc. So in my head, they're like two separate worlds, but in your head, they're together. I don't know.
Maybe it's my mental modeling on these products, like the Janovers, the Cantor, the freight solutions that's holding Fartcoin. But I'm just mentally modeling these as essentially just levered bets on crypto. If crypto crashes significantly, these are going to crash harder. And that's the same thing I view Fartcoin as, essentially, is a levered bet on crypto. It'll go up harder, it'll go down harder. And I think that these companies are going to do something similar. So like that's kind of my model. Like I don't see a baseline for Cantor and for Janover that like may exist for other equities. Because we haven't really seen a crypto bear for these. Like a crypto bear, these things could go like very, very, very low is the issue. Like they can go down 90, 95%. So like that's my thought process with these. Like that's how I'm treating them essentially, because they're so levered and tied to crypto that it's going to be very bad when things are very bad, essentially.
Okay, so we're on the same page as that when things go bad, everything goes bad. But like if it was a slider, I'd be like Fartcoin over there, and then I'd be like 21, just like a little bit more over there. But yeah, no, I don't know. It's something that I'm also like having to wrap my head around. And allocating in size is something that I struggle with when it comes to this particular stuff.
Absolutely. And speaking of Bitcoin acquisition, we had some news out of Metaplanet and MicroStrategy. Metaplanet acquired 100 million worth of Bitcoin. MicroStrategy acquired 765 million worth of Bitcoin. But a little bit of hot water for MicroStrategy. Class action lawsuit filed over alleged misleading statements on its Bitcoin strategy. I didn't look into this too much. I thought this was interesting to see this. I'm wondering like who are the people who are like upset by this. MicroStrategy is after open trading up half or 0.05%, basically even here at 400. I mean, looking pretty strong. I'm not sure exactly what happened with this class action suit, but interesting to see that come out.
I think it's a nothing burger. I don't think it's gonna. I mean, what has Saylor personally been doing his P&L accounting? Like it just feels like a little bit of mud has been thrown at the company. I kind of see this as a nothing burger and move on. Unless the guy literally like loses all his Bitcoin, I think MicroStrategy is absolutely fine. Like unless the company gets hacked, we're good. We're good. I don't think this is going to touch the stock in any significant way.
Yeah. There's not much detail here. Basically, that strategy released that this lawsuit was out there. They're seeking unspecified damages, and the company has stated its intention to defend the claims. Yeah, interesting. I mean, another vector that these things could potentially get hurt. Oh no, I'm stuck here. Can you hear me all right?
I hear you well.
All right, there we go. I was stuck on a StreamYard screen. I couldn't bring us back up. Yeah, I wanted to touch on that briefly. I've got some interesting stuff to talk about. Have you been playing around anywhere, Sig, or you've been sitting pretty much on your hands?
My portfolio is in the green. Everything is up. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to do anything, right? Like I feel like for me, if I keep clicking buttons, it will go down. It's going to go down and it's going to go red. So I'm in the green. I am happy. So no, I haven't been clicking too many buttons recently. What have you been up to?
I clicked this button over the weekend. Kix talked about TokenWorks on the show Friday, basically on-chain funding for like it's like a way to fund projects and to remove speculation. Essentially, you mint NFTs. The money gets locked and vested to the creator. You can burn your NFT at any time to retrieve however much money hasn't been vested. So it's kind of like a funding round for the creator where the creator eventually can deliver, or like you're betting on a creator. So it's like sort of the proof model, but without the speculation. Kix was talked about this at length, I think, last Friday. Eventually convinced me to mint. I think Easy was tweeting about it on the timeline as well. I saw some big figures in this one for TokenWorks. So this was one that was interesting. 1 ETH mint, 365 vesting days. I think some people in the crowd I've seen over in that Discord as well. But this is interesting for token NFT funding. Interesting to see like how this plays out, what other companies are going to use an NFT like raise strategy like this. It's kind of like a bit more like on the equitable side, where like the creator and the holders are kind of both incentivized for the project to kind of work out without speculation.
So sorry, run me through that again. So I missed the show last Friday. So there's a creator is doing what? So can you give me an example of like what you minted?
Yeah, so I minted basically their platform NFT. This is run by Rhinotic Adam. He's been in this space for a while. He's been like basically recently developing Uniswap V4 hooks, essentially different like on-chain programs you can attach to Uniswap pools that do like interesting things. So minting this NFT essentially is like funding him in this space. And the hope is that like eventually like you are somehow rewarded for this as an investor. Like there's no like promised gains or anything. So it's kind of like up to the creator. And then as the time goes down, like each day, like part of your initial 1 ETH gets vested to the creator can use that money for development, etc. And then if for whatever reason you're unhappy throughout it, you can burn your NFT, withdraw whatever hasn't been vested. So it's kind of like incentive for the creator to continue to deliver or to provide ways to deliver. And it kind of gives you like a sliding like investment into the project.
Oh, that sounds actually really cool. But the caliber in the example that you just gave, the caliber of the creator is obviously really high. Is that what they're all like? Like, is that kind of the type of creators that they're going for?
Yeah. So this was the first one, which is essentially like funding essentially the program itself. And I imagine that I'm not sure like how open it's going to be or like how they're going to curate their creators. But essentially, yeah, I mean, caliber of creator is going to be like the most important thing. Like I'll be watching this to see like who's going to potentially like ask for funding. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, do we think there's going to be a return, etc.
Oh, I like that. I think that's actually a really smart way of using NFTs and the funds. Like to have a 1 ETH mint in this climate is obviously pretty high, but to do it in this way where you have a high caliber creator that is interested in moving the industry or a specific platform forward, and that platform as well is an established platform within the space, it takes away the risk of having to think, okay, is one, the platform that they're working for going to be around in 2-3 years time? Two, it takes away the risk that is this person vetted by everybody else? Because it's obviously a very good developer in this case. And then three, you can get a refund. And I think that's the biggest thing. That for me, when I see 1 ETH mint, it just sort of like sends shivers down my spine because of how many projects did such high mints in the past and then vanished. The game never came out or whatever they were publishing at the time. But I like the fact that you can get this refund. And then what they could do for holders, obviously, is that if you hold this NFT and then there's another really high caliber creator coming for round 2, people who have the NFTs are on essentially the mint list for the next one. So that's really smart. I really like that. That was a good play. Can't believe I missed Friday's episode. Okay. That's my fault.
They were tweeting about it on the timeline. I think Deez was tweeting about it. Kicks, Easy. I think Matt Cain, the artist, was interested here. I think right now like somebody who's fairly well respected in this space, and he has a lot of supporters and a nice network that allowed him to mint out. It was going slow. Like it was very slow. I think it opened Friday afternoon, and I minted like Saturday. I think there were only 50 minted at the time. And then there's some talk on the timeline Saturday evening into Sunday, and it went from like half mint to minted out in like a minute. So
the best ones go slow, Ray. The best ones, like the real cookerinos. I'm talking like Bored Apes, mints for a week. No one's looking at it, or a weekend or whatever it was. The best ones cook slow. So I'm actually really annoyed that I missed this. Okay. Do you want to share? Do you want to go 50-50 on the NFT? I'm just saying.
I want my whole.
I got 0.5 available if you'd like it.
Brian, I'm in the Discord. We've been talking in there. I'm RCIV. I've been literally talking to you in the Discord. Yeah, it's great. Yes, it's just interesting. That's just one button that I've been clicking and watching. As well. It's breaking news. DeFi DevCorp just got halted in Robinhood. I think just got halted overall. It's down 25% on the day. So this is what I'm talking about with volatility. Like when I'm comparing them to Farcoin. This is what I'm saying. 25%
of the day. That's nothing, Ray. That's nothing. Like, come on. That's nothing. Farcoin Maxi here as well. I love it. 25% of the day. That's over breakfast.
Yep. So that's what I'm talking about. Other buttons I've been clicking, Sig. I've been in virtuals. They just made a new announcement. They've changed up how that's been working. Have you been paying any attention to virtuals lately?
I don't like virtuals. Oh, sorry. Did I say something I'm not meant to say?
No, you're absolutely good. And I think that's an absolute fair take for virtuals. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, this is a Ponzi. Like it's 100% a Ponzi, and they're working to make it more of a Ponzi. I just think that the trade is like still there. I think there's still a trade here. Essentially what they've done is essentially like before, like you'd be earning these points based on a number of factors. So basically how the system works is that you earn points, agents launch on their launch pad, and then you opt into agent launches. As you opt into agent launches, like it depends on how many people opt in, how much virtual they commit, and then everyone gets distributed like equal amounts of tokens to what they can opt in. The more points you have, the more you can opt in, the more you can get of the supply, essentially. So basically what this does, it's like their attempt to like have a fair launch without snipers. So we talked about this a little bit. You can earn points multiple ways. You can earn points talking about them on the timeline, staking Kaido, holding agents, buying new agents, trading agents. You can stake some of the old agents, like Vader is like one of the bigger AI tokens from last play or like last cycle, if you want to call it last cycle 4 months ago. Like they have their own staking program. So does Trust. But what they just added is like the ability to stake all new agents. So essentially, all new agents that are launching on the platform are going to be staked, and that's going to how you're going to earn like the majority of your points. So adding another layer, being like, okay, well, you're earning points for holding them. Now you have to stake them, and they're locked up. So like you're basically supporting price to an extent for each of these new launches, which is then going to drive more demand in as well. So I think that like I think we're still like at the point where there's meat on the bone. I think maybe 1 week from now, my opinion is going to change. But I think right now, not enough people are like looking at the numbers and how much you are potentially making on these. Like, if you're earning a significant amount of points, I think it's a no-brainer if you have a significant amount of capital to jump in here. Obviously, not financial advice, but every single launch that I participated in has been like a 10 to 15x, given that my size isn't huge because I don't have a ton of points. But every launch I've been in has been like a 10 to 15x. And I think they're going to continue at least for like the short term, 1 week, 2 weeks. So something you want to pay attention to. There are like zero cost ways to enter into it, and like yapping about it, or just like, yeah, I mean, basically talking on the timeline, you get Kaido bonuses.
How long have you been? How early to the Ponzi were you?
I want to say it's not. It hasn't even been 10 days. Whenever Roast launched was probably the first one I participated in.
Okay.
And like as
Okay.
you can
So
see, like I'm not able to commit a huge amount of virtual into these at this point.
Okay, so you've got a 10-day head start on somebody who would want to get in today, and then you're saying that that person, if they got in today and committed capital rather than trying to go about it getting free, would have a 7-day lull to be able to get their money back because they have to stake it in order to get the returns.
Points come daily, but yeah, I mean, I think unless you're like really plugged in and know exactly where to put it, it's gonna take like a week. But yeah, just for like an example, like this super connector, I committed 11 virtual. So I mean, this is only $22. Like virtual is about $2. And then what I received here is worth 79. So like 7x on initials for anybody. So if you're doing this in size, you're absolutely cooking. And then the thing is, like, once you sell, you're basically wiped out for a week.
And then so you're saying in 7 days time the Ponzi collapses because there's too many people that know about it, or what's the reason why it collapses in 7 days?
I'm not saying it completely. I'm not saying it's going to collapse in 7 days. I'm saying it could. I'm monitoring like how much virtual is being staked,
Okay.
how much of each of these new agents are being staked. When there are new agents launching, are there new agents launching that are oversubscribed? Like basically, if you go a couple days without having a good launch, I could see people saying, "Okay, Ponzi's over, full sell everything," because right now it's either like full sell everything or like full hold everything.
Okay. And how long, when you stake, if you are locked, how long are you locked? How long are your funds locked for? And how long does it take to withdraw them?
So I'm not sure on the individual agent staking at this point. I haven't been able to get into one that gives me the lockup. So like for instance, one that should have a lockup here. Okay, I can look at Gloria here. 14 days. So 14-day lockup, which is like,
Okay.
so like, I think the thing is like, this just got announced this morning. So the thing is basically look at these tokens. I mean, maybe something I might do this evening is make even like a quick vibe coded dashboard to look at like how much of these tokens is staked versus supply. If that makes sense. So you can kind of get like a live look at like, okay, these have been staked for like this percentage of the supply has been staked for 14 days. We have 2 more weeks of this before there's an issue. and everyone runs for the door.
I'm not. I'm just not a huge. Oh, okay. Maybe what you could do is just stake 50% of your bag and then keep 50% for the exit. Because I don't know. I've been burnt enough times to know that when you stake and then you can't get your funds out, everyone else is running for the door, and you're just left like watching a timer and being like, I can't get my funds out. So potentially a good way to play this, if you wanted to do this, would just be to just keep 50% of your bag ready to go, and then you have 50% of your bag earning the returns that you're talking about, which potentially could start diminishing in the next 7 to 10 days. So by the time you get to day 14 and you're taking out your so you get, by the time you get to day 14 and you're unstaking, it's, you know, here or there whether you've got anything to actually sell. Respectfully, this is so dumb. Wolfie says, no, I don't think it's dumb. It's not. It's just a question of like, how early are you to the Ponzi? Because this happens all the time across all platforms, across all ecosystems. And I think when you're early and you're on it, as Ray has been, then yeah, it's beautiful and it's a rainy day of like 10 to 15 exits. But if you're late to it, then yeah, that's you're essentially the exit liquidity, and the end and the one end up being burned. I'm not saying you shouldn't do these things. I'm just saying if you're going to do them, you want to be early to them. And in this case, Ray's early, so he's done well.
Multi-level. Ebring says, I prefer to call it multi-level agentic marketing. Trader Fermi says, no, you can just short it and get delta neutral. Yeah, that's also an option. You could do this with your virtual and then short it on like maybe Hyperliquid DYDX, and potentially get in a position where you're going to be win-win. They also have direct staking of virtual. I staked up 500 virtual, $1,000 for max 2 years. Basically, this is getting airdrops. I've earned 40% back of that capital over the last 2 airdrops this week. So another interesting one. For those who don't remember, virtuals wasn't always virtuals. They had a different platform. I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah. What was it?
I was in it for a while, and they had all these sort of like lockups and APRs. And when I locked up in that platform towards like the beginning, when I came back towards the end, when they were like popping out, they weren't zero. It was maybe 60, 70% of what the initial value was. So I think they do know how to do these long-term lockups. Yeah, Path. Ebring says it. Yeah, Path. So that was what they were before virtuals. I got actually a decent virtual airdrop that I sold, like when they first did it, because I had just gotten out of this Ponzi that's been going on for years, and then they airdropped virtuals to me, and I was like, okay, well, I can get out. I think I was positive after selling whatever Path and virtuals I had. So there is also the option to direct stake virtual, and this is another thing I want to like take a look at, find a good dashboard for, to see like how much virtual is getting locked up and like what that's doing to the actual price of virtual. Because essentially you're just lowering like virtual supply in that scenario.
So is this one of your in like in terms of like AI meme coins, etc., that whole like, let's just call it alt bag, is this one of your biggest holdings?
It's my biggest like alt bag in terms of AI and like the AI sector. Like, I mean, well, it is my entire AI bag is like in the virtuals ecosystem. Yeah. But it's not a very large percentage of like my overall crypto investment bag. It's just one area I'm playing. Like I think I might have 5 figures total across all assets in there. But it's an area that I'm just like interested in. I think there could be high ROI, especially if we get back to all-time high on virtual. If that makes sense.
That's that's what I'm thinking at the back of my head. I'm like, if this goes back to all-time highs later on this year, which it definitely is a possibility, that could be an extremely interesting play, what you're doing now. But I think like, while you don't know what is going to happen in the future to virtual, I think what you're doing is like a really interesting play on the ecosystem. Yeah, you still haven't sold me 100%, right? Like you still haven't sold me 100%, but I think considering how early you were and how well positioned you are, I think you've got a really interesting play.
Yeah, and I'm
just not jumping in today.
I was late. Anyone like, I mean, I sold too many of my virtuals, like too many of my agents in January. I sold some things like towards the bottom. Like if I had been properly holding and staking a lot of these, I would have been in a much better position. So right now, my thought process is like get in that position for short term. It's working out. Long term could really work out. And like I said, it's not a huge percentage of my bag. And like I'm definitely saying like, hey, in 1 week I could come back on the show and being like, that was all wrong. Everything went to zero. Everyone sold out. And now we're like kind of back to like a point where like, hey, if you believe in virtuals, it's time to potentially jump in again.
I actually don't think that's going to happen. I think this play for you personally has legs, and it's going to keep going probably as we crab walk. Like, and this was going back to my point that I had that when I was talking about what is sort of the overall feeling of the market right now. If BTC is just like doing its thing, hovering above 100, everyone's feeling good, then this is the perfect play to be. This is like a nice risk on play where you positioned yourself back in January and for you to keep running with things. But if you see like BTC going down to what you were saying, right, 88K, then it'll be like, oh, right, I need to get out. I need to exit before the whole thing essentially tanks. So kind of depends, I think, on what the macro is doing, like specifically what BTC is doing, to be able to talk to what will likely happen to this strategy over the next, let's say, 3 months. But I think you're good. I think this could run it back.
Yeah, that's the hope. Taking a look at some of the other the news I have here. Big piece of interesting news on U.S. stablecoins. Democratic Senator Mark Warner announced his support for the latest version of the Genius Stablecoin Act, and he's encouraging all of his colleagues to do the same. So this is pretty important because if you remember in the Senate, the Genius Act went up to like a preliminary vote and was basically like rejected, with a number of supporters, previous supporters, voting against it from the Democratic side. So
remind me, what is the Genius Act for those who don't remember?
Yeah, so it's a stablecoin act. It basically provides like regulatory framework on stablecoins. I don't know the exact provisions off the top of my head, but it's essentially like what people are looking at as like the stablecoin legislation that's going to be like providing clarity on like how it can be used by crypto businesses, banking, etc. So like this is basically what's going on. So here's May 8th is when it failed to pass the Senate. But basically regulatory framework for stablecoins.
So it's basically a big deal.
Yes, this is like one of the bigger pieces of legislation that's going to be rolling out this year.
That is actually super exciting. I am so like pro stable coins. I just think they're like they're the boring part of crypto to look at, but also the sexiest. It's kind of like when you need when your friend is studying tax at university and you're like, Jesus, that person is so boring. And then you become 30 and you're like, I wonder if I still know that girl who is doing tax. She'll know how to be able to reduce my tax bill and be able to put everything in a nice little wrapper. It's like super boring and dry, but probably is one of the most profitable areas of crypto. And we still don't have a way of being able to actually invest in stable coins in terms of having we have Circle. We have the Circle IPO, which still hasn't happened yet, or Tether if they decide to do it as well. But I really think that having exposure to stable coins as part of your portfolio, to me, is far more interesting than having exposure to a company that is just buying Bitcoin. And the reason is because you're going to see all of TradFi, all of corporate companies essentially have to be able to navigate to rails. They need to be able to navigate the SWIFT system, which is what we are currently on. And they're going to have to be able to get that money into stable coins, so take it off rail, put it into stable coins, and then go off into whichever direction they want those stable coins to go into. So do they want to be in cryptocurrency? Are they just trying to go back into fiat? All of this is just like worldwide plumbing. And it looks extremely boring from the outside, but when you really sort of delve into it and understand how money works and how money moves, and FX and coming off FX, trying to get into different currencies, is actually extremely interesting. And I'm probably boring the audience with this, but this is why this stablecoin regulation matters so much, because it has huge implications, not just us guys on like Twitter trying to come in like into BTC, out of BTC, into Ripple, out of like, no, this has huge implications. So I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see that get passed, Ray. Really, I think stable coins, very unsexy, but very profitable and very interesting.
I 100% agree. I think this is important. It isn't sexy, and it is going to move things forward when it does. It definitely is not an ideal time to be somebody who's in the financial world, like you said, trying to move things across different rails at this point. And then there's also like just inherent risk with crypto. You take on when you're dealing with a decentralized system, you take on just existential risk with any kind of system you're then implementing as your like yourself, because it's not some like internally developed or something that's been like worked on for and hardened for a number of years, like the banking system has.
Well, exactly. And, there's plenty of corporations out there that actually do want to transact on weekends and would transact on weekends if they could. But if they're trying to get their, Turkish lira into US dollars and the bank is closed, well, what are you going to do? You want to get your Turkish lira into USDC, for example, or USDT. And that can happen on a weekend, but it can't happen right now for those corporations that want to do that. So there's lots of interesting ways of looking at this, which is why I get excited when I hear about bills like Genius being passed.
Yep, I'm excited about it as well. Some more news before we wrap. Trump and Putin are supposed to be holding a call today, right now. I believe it just started at 10 a.m. There's going to be a readout afterwards. So maybe we see some progress on the global peace front there. That's interesting as well that I saw coming out this morning. Trump also saying he disagrees with Moody's. Not a surprise that he didn't agree with them lowering the U.S. credit rating. Some more quick hitters before we wrap today. U.S. Treasury yield rose to over 5%, highest since November of 24. The DYX dollar index fell to a 10-day low. Vitalik released a paper on how to make L1s more scaling friendly to local node runners. And ARK CEO Kathy Wood predicts $1.5 million for Bitcoin by 2030.
Oh Jesus, she's doing to Bitcoin what she did to Tesla. I'm like, we don't need you, Kathy. We don't need you. Don't do that. Just shh. There's two people you just spoke about that I feel like they should be quieter. Like Vitalik, you're not helping. You're not helping the price anymore. So just keep it down. And Kathy, seriously, like there was a moment where she had it, and then I feel like she lost it. And now she's doing the thing that she did to Tesla and all the other shares that she had, talking about 1.5 million. It's not helping. It's not helping anyone's bags. In fact, I think it might be actually damaging my bags.
She lost her pump juice. It's when you drop too many contract addresses on the timeline.
Yeah.
You lose it. You lose it.
Yeah. Totally. She's she juiced it all out in 2021. You're like, the last drop of Tesla, and then that was it. It was gone. But yeah, no, it's interesting. It's been like seeing lots of sort of numbers being pulled out of the air as to what the price of Bitcoin will be in 5 years. I always laugh, but I'm just like, I don't mind. I'm on the right side of the trade. It's all good.
Yep, absolutely. We've been running for an hour. Before we wrap, anything else you want to cover, Sig, or have we pretty much?
No, I think we've covered all the big moves of the weekend. What's been going on in stable coins and macro, what's happening in Virtual's ecosystem. I think we've covered a lot. I'm looking forward for us to having kicks on the show while the cats are away. The mice are going to play over here. We're going to do our whole thing. We need to do some trading this week, Ray. I think we need to come up with either some meme coin trading or something else. But let's go spend. I feel like spending, don't you?
Yeah, I do too. Maybe we'll keep dipping, and I'll come in tomorrow with a live buy on something.
We need to do some live buys
for a live buy. That being said, that's going to be the end of our show. Thank you all for joining us on this wonderful Monday after a crazy weekend. We love you. We love you being here. Throw us a like, throw us a comment, throw us a retweet, give us a sub on YouTube, click the thumbs up, all the above. We do this podcast Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern time. You can catch us back on all major podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple. Watch us on YouTube. Thanks for listening. Have a wonderful Monday. We'll see you tomorrow.
Peace.